Hey guys, Zeteo here, doing a replay analysis for Masterbel2, playing Air on Twin Lakes Park. Now, Masterbel is a player that has been around the block several times over, playing Bar, playing Balanced Annihilation, Total Annihilation, just kind of grew up with it, big in the family, like etc. etc. Just he's been around teaching a lot of really good players for a long time. Now this is an Air replay. He might not be as familiar with Air, but he does a pretty darn good job of it. So I want to point out a lot of the good stuff that he does, as well as some of the things to improve on. So I'm mostly going to be talking about his bombing run and talking about how he scales and his transition and all that in the T2. So let's speed up this early game a little bit. His opponent on the other side is Blopson, playing green. So we'll see what these guys do. Now lots of wind. Wind is a little bit low, but yeah, you need a little bit more for air anyway, so it's totally fine. Looks like he's opening a bot lab first. Now this might be something that a lot of players will talk about is do you go air lab but then buy T1 cons from somebody? And I would say in this position, I would say no, because this player's kind of far away. You could, but then you gotta wait for the T1 con to like move around and buy that transport and all that. And it's like, this way you can build as many cons as you want. You can build ground support if you want. You can build a res if you want. Resbot, or yeah, Resbot. I thought I was gonna say Reflame Bot for a minute, but yeah, Resbot. A couple grunts coming out to help with some annoyances here. Let's see, on the other side, Blopson doing the same thing. So, this is pretty much what you want to do on this kind of map. Because distances are longer, and because you get your cons out, like just scaling for yourself. Because you only have the 4 mexes here. So there's not a lot to work with. So with that in mind, so yeah, a lot of good grunts coming out here to help defend his ally here. Unfortunately, Governor has taken some damage here. But yeah, lots of units running in here that Bell has helped clean up. So yeah, lots of wind scaling for now. Lab is off. He feels like his allies are capable of handling this situation. And yeah, now building that air lab. Lab's already gone, reclaimed. Lots of nanos here, so a lot of construction is going to go up rather quickly. And he's just scaling wind, scaling energy converters. This is another thing to talk about. In a lot of situations, you don't really want to scale T1 economy, because even something as juicy as wind takes at least 3 minutes to pay off with good wind. In a lot of cases, it's more like 4. But yeah, I guess it's more like 3, and in some cases it could be like 2 something. But yeah, it takes time to pay it back, and so you don't want to scale it too hard. Unless you do it super early like this. And in a lot of cases on the front line, you can't do that. Or as tech, you're kind of rather just save up that money to get T2 faster. So not usually a good idea. But in this position, as air player, as needing more energy, in more metal in that stage of transition, in case there's bombers and stuff, you want to be able to produce a lot more. So both players basically going for that. Energy storage, very important for when the wind dips down. And yeah, just producing some figs. And I forgot to talk about the scouting. So Masterbel did scout north, middle, and bottom. With the scouts, very important to do. Get some information. You want to know where the enemy commanders are. You want to know what units are coming out. You want to know where the buildings are, what the buildings are. And that just helps you know where to bomb later, and it also helps your allies know where, what kind of situation they're in, and how to adapt, basically. So very important, very good stuff. Something that I don't think Blopson did, or maybe I just missed it, I'm not sure. But yeah, just having some figs out. Reasonable count. Let's see, income-wise, he's basically on par with his opposite. With green. He sees Shuris, he responds very quickly. Moves the Figs in a position to prevent those Shuris from hurting Tan and Brown here. Very good stuff. And now just kind of moving around to make sure that they don't get picked off, but having them close by just in case. You don't want them hovering around enemy commanders because commanders can pick them off pretty easily. I feel like I'm missing something. I am not sure. But anyways, looks like he's produced some bombers. And okay, so here's something important to make note of. So his opposite air player has built Shuris, which means that metal, this 464 metal, is not in fighters. I see very often players asking, how do I know when to build bombers? How do I know that my air is superior to my enemies? And in lower leagues, it's kind of hard to know that because, people's economies are kind of all over the place. Like my economy could be stronger than theirs, or it could be weaker. I don't know. Scouting can help with that, and try to just like make sense of it and analyze your replays to like figure that out, and pay attention to it. But here in this, these upper levels, where you know that your opponent is doing something similar, if you know that they spent extra money on something that isn't going to help them against things like bombers, then you have extra money that you can spend in bombers. Also, just this early on, since you don't have a lot of metal, you don't really have a lot of figs, and the map is big enough to where you can basically always find a hole somewhere. So it's a reasonable thing to do, even if you didn't understand that these Shuris are there. This is kind of really unfortunate for Tan here, just kind of letting these grunts slip through. Bombing run is underway. All right, so here is an important thing I want to talk about. So this bombing run is fairly naked. If we go to Masterbel's view, this is what he sees. He sees a lab, he sees some wind turbines, more wind turbines, and wind turbines here. And probably the mechs here, right? And this is the spread. So there's all these targets here that aren't necessarily hitting anything. If we take off the view, we know that it hits some, there's some more stuff here. But, so he's potentially going to do quite a bit of damage here. But ideally, you want to scout right before the bombers. Like have one like here, or even maybe a little bit further out, so that you have that information and or you have a better idea of where to put those bombs, right? So I'd say do that, but then also have a scout with your bombers. Like have one guard a bunch of bombers. You have it guard several so that in case one of those bombers gets taken out, the scout will continue on guarding those bombers. And then you'll just have extra vision with your bombers. Because if you look at this, the bombers don't really have a lot of great, grounds line of sight. It's only 169, which is minuscule. Fig's a little bit more. They have 210. But yeah, it's just the vision's not great. So having a scout is really nice to have with it. So one with it, one ahead of it. And the one ahead can just fly around, look for stuff. Or maybe you do several like you did earlier, where you just send in across the land so you get an updated view of where those targets are. Really helpful. So the second thing here that I want to talk about is a technique called cloning. It's a StarCraft 1 technique that was necessary because smart casting did not exist like it does in StarCraft 2. In StarCraft 2, you can just select all your spellcasters and then just pick all these different locations from the cast, and each one will go to a different one. In StarCraft 1, all the spellcasters would cast on one target. So what you need to do, what pros do to this day, is they select their casters, and they'll have them out here, and they'll select them, right? And basically they'll select one, pick a target, select another one, pick a target, select another one, pick a target. Sorry, cloning the action of all these different targets. You can do the same thing here with bombers. Something I would highly recommend if you have the APM for it. It's very APM intensive, so I don't suggest doing it for just everybody. But if you have the extra APM, or I should say, if you don't have the APM for this, then just do what Masterbel is doing, where it's just scout ahead, see where those targets are, and do the best you can drawing a line between all those different points to spread out the bombs. But as Master Bell, you know, I'm sure you might have some extra APM lying around. I think it's highly worth it to do this, but basically, you can either do individual bombers, which is kind of crazy to me, but you know, you select a chunk of your bombers, pick a target, or you know, make a line, select some more, make a line somewhere else. You know, so basically the ones that are not hitting stuff, you can reroute to hit stuff, basically. You know, so you have a little bit more control of where those bombs are going, and then you'll be able to just do maximum damage that way. Second thing I want to point out here, or other thing I want to point out here, is this lab and this lab. If you know where they are, not always good targets. Labs have a lot of hit points, and if you destroy them, it's not really like yeah, it's a chunk of metal that they are lost, but if they still have the energy and they still have metal income, like they can pretty easily rebuild it, or just like, you know, get back in the game by rebuilding it. Like it's not that hard to rebuild it. It doesn't take that long to do it. You know, if you think about how long it takes to make like a whole grid of wind turbines, it takes quite a while. You know, so if you take that out, you kill their energy, and now they don't have energy to build anything. So really good target. Same with build power. Take out the build power, then they have to, you know, slowly crawl their way back with build power, regardless of how much energy or how much resources that they have. So yeah, energy and build power are what's the target. Bombers coming in here. You know, same thing. Unfortunately, didn't get as much. Well, he got a lot actually, but there was like a grid here, and then there's like, you know, he sees the grid up here, and there's, you know, some other stuff here. As it so happens, or actually I think it extended out here. He targeted this spot, which ended up chaining these, but you know, that was pretty off target. It could have been more centralized if he had scouted. And he could have bombed this as well on the first pass. But yeah, since this is the enemy air player, it's worth going and doing a second pass to hurt them even more. Because once you establish air dominance, it's really, you know, it's a lot easier to keep it if you're able to do that. So taking out the build power here on that second pass. Lab is almost dead here. He sees some figs, so I think he's just kind of moving on because he sees those figs and because there's juicier targets elsewhere. And it looks like he is spreading out a bit here. He's got 3 coming up to the top here. And these other guys, they're just moving for now, but I think they're going to find other targets in a moment. But it's unfortunate that this lab didn't go down, because if you take out the lab and the build power and the energy infrastructure, then they have to rebuild like a lot of stuff, and they don't have a lab to build cons with, and they don't have the ability to just like, you know, it's like to rebuild the lab takes a while. You know, after the energy and build power, like that's a reasonable target. So I think that would have hurt Blopson even more in this position. All right, so bombers coming down to blue, some bombing the stuff in the water, some going up to green. Fortunately, some. Okay, I mean, I would have maybe gone for this a little bit more, but they're a little bit spread. They're spaced 1, so they're not going to chain. This is not as much you can do, but unfortunately, there was an anti-air around here somewhere. There's also anti-air down here, so there's a lot of stuff. Meanwhile, there's a bombing run from Blopson at the top here that I think Masterbel just missed. Unfortunately, you know, there's no air scout with this. It was just kind of like, well, I need to use these. But yeah, second pass, getting a lot of stuff here. And unfortunately, the figs from Masterbel are out of position. I'm pretty sure those bombers were in vision of Masterbel, like with his bombers. So he should have seen that. He should have realized, like, you know, they're going somewhere and they're going up north. So let me move my figs into a better position to possibly take care of that, and then maybe watch the mini-map or watch the map zoomed out to, you know, see where they end up going. Whoops, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. Okay, so figs take care of that. Bombers are coming out still. And I feel like this is probably one of the biggest blunders of the replay. So you're still producing bombers here, which, you know, if you think about like what makes sense, you just bomb the crap out of this air player. You did some damage down here as well, and you have the possibility to do even more damage if you continue building bombers. You know, and if you're trying to just like find ways to end the game, this is definitely like it's worth practicing. But in this particular case, at this level, I wouldn't really advise it, because you know there's a ton of anti-air for blue. You know there's, well, I guess maybe you didn't see this, but you should know that there's an anti-air in this region. So you can't bomb there. You can't bomb here. You can't bomb here. So you already know all this stuff. This stuff on the radar, or stuff that you saw shoot anti-air. So only a reasonable target to like do economic damage is on dark green and these two players. And who knows, maybe they've built more anti-air in that time. And there's even some anti-air here already. So, you know, what can you really do with bombers at this point? And the answer is you can take out forward bases, maybe. You can't take out there. You can maybe do something down here. And you can maybe do some stuff up here. So there isn't really like a ton of stuff. Like, I don't feel like that would be enough to justify more bombers. So I feel like you should be playing the safer route and getting your T2 in order. So yeah, at this time, you know, players already have T2 cons coming out. You could just buy one. And I'm even imagining, like, you know, you buy one, get a transport it over, of course, and upgrade your 4 mexes, and then you can even continue back on your T1 lab and just have that accelerated income. Or if you wanted to be even safer, you know, you scale your energy as well and get your T2 factory up. And then all that anti-air is not as useful. Because as it is, Blopson, you know, still had the lab, is rebuilding, has a T2 constructor, and has some metal banks. And so he's able to start upgrading these mexes. And so he's crawling back into the game here. Where's his energy coming from? I guess he's just getting shared it or something. I'm not 100% sure. There's this stack of wind, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose that's the amounts. So yeah, bombers go over here, run into an eradicator. A lot of them just die. Some of them do get pulled out here. But yeah, it's like, it's just kind of hard to find targets at this point, right? Setting it up. Okay, reasonable spot. Going for the commander, it looks like. Commander just walks out of the way. Yeah, I mean, I feel like in a lot of cases at this level, like, you're not really going to... Like, yeah, killing the commander here is nice, but what does that really mean? You know? Like, I mean, maybe Brown can push up here with the T2 that are coming in. But as it is, this wreck is on, you know, it's well, I guess it's right on the line of skirmish, right? Skirmish. And like purple, I feel like could pretty easily get some cons over here to do that. It was during the transition time, so maybe a little bit less likely, but you know, they should have some out already. So I guess, yeah, it's basically metal going to them in a way, unless Brown can secure this, and they should be able to with the T2 coming in. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But yeah, just more scouts, more bombers coming in. But like during all this time, what's really going on? You know, you're just bombing a few things. I mean, this is, yeah, it looks like this is going to be a reasonable thing because Brown should be able to get over there. But you're not getting like a whole lot done. Like, to me, getting that T2 economy going would be a bigger deal. Bigger help here. Oh, this looks juicy. Geo and a lab? Hell yeah. Poor Ural. That sucks. Okay, so Bomber's going for the bases over here. Decide not to because of the anti-air. And start going towards dark green here because you know that there's no anti-air whatsoever. So, nice little find here. Again, cloning the targets so that you just kill it all in one pass would be OP. And there's even some fringe wind turbines and stuff you could go for. But yeah, I mean, as it is, like, this should be enough for your team to close out the game. And yeah, I feel like the safer play is just to go for the T2. Because at this point it's like, well, if they are... So here's the thing that I think a lot of new players might need to think about a little bit more too. What the hell happened to my UI? UI reload. What was I saying? Okay, so here's the thing, is your team could be doing really well, but it might be doing really well because the other team is scaling T2 faster. So it's like, you guys might push forward, and then they might push right on back once that T2 really comes online. I mean, it's not really what's happening in this game, but, you know, to me, it's just really important to scale the T2 in an 8v8 setting especially. Because you can't, you know, it's like there's all these other people around that potentially are going to be in a good spot. Like blue is probably in a pretty strong position. Lovish is a very strong player. Yeah, going for that agitator. But unfortunately all this anti-air was built and you don't even get it. So I believe that's 2 agitators you didn't get, because I think you were going for this one earlier. So where's that T2? You might be buying it now. Oh yeah, okay. So you got a T2 somewhere. Maybe it's already over here? No? I don't know, you paid somebody for it. And it looks like you got one, right? Yeah, so... Oh, it came from Scuttles. Okay. Or Skittles. Scuttles? Yeah, Scuttles. I still call Scuttles Skittles. The unit, that is. Okay, did some, you know, some reasonable bombing there on Ural. But yeah, just a lot of these bombers aren't really going to do that much at this stage. And now Blobson's like kind of built back up, right? Like, let's look at this. Yeah, so looks like, yeah, already has a fusion, has his T2 mexes upgraded, starting to produce figs again. You know, meanwhile, you're just starting your T2 mexes. Yeah, and this just has to do with the timing. It's so late to get in T2. Like, basically what you're doing is basically like, I want to end the game now. But if you don't end the game now, then you're just behind. And so now you're just behind. You did some nice damage, don't get me wrong. But I just feel like scaling at least like the metal would have been just so much better in terms of like the long run. So I mean, that's basically it. I think Brown's about to pretty much close this out, or maybe not. There is a nuke silo. Just wonder where it's gonna shoot. Okay, looks like it's on Lovish, and boom. Alright, well there's that base gone. So now their team's basically out. The other thing that you can do that I don't think a lot of players think about, I mean you can, but it's, you know, it's highly risky, but you could potentially go ground instead of air too, to just like close it out in a different way. But honestly, air is probably a better way to do it. So that's not usually the play, but I'm just trying to be creative here. I'm trying to close this out, because that was a lot of damage there, a lot of damage that you did on these players. So it's really just like waiting for the ground crew to like finalize it. And of course you can help out with your own air or whatever. Actually, there is one more thing I want to point out during this replay. Let's try to get there. Looks like Scuttles is scouting. Really nice scout, lots of scouts going in. Just getting like a heads up on how many figs there are. And, you know, do you need to worry about 2 air players or what? And he saw some Ural air, so yeah, 2 air players. Looks like Pink is going air as well. This is pretty typical, in case anyone watching isn't used to seeing it, but like in these higher end games, it's pretty typical for 2 players to go air eventually. Just because like if it's ever two air players against one, then it's really, really hard for the one air player to, fully stop a bombing. And, bombing can really end the game if an Aphis blows up or something like that. So, kind of a big deal. All right, so Blobson going for it. This is really important, I think, for a lot of people to realize. I think this is a big mistake from Blobson. I think this is a really good play from Masterbel. He has his figs down here. He knows that the majority of air is like more down here, and that's kind of why they're down here, because there's a good chance that the enemy air comes this way. But as it happens, Blobson realizes that and goes this way, right? Just a really strong like frontal straight on attack. But the thing is, Masterbel, being as quick as he is, sees it coming, responds rather quickly, and these fighters, I guess the UI is not showing for it, but the fighters have, they can only attack in front of them. They have this like angle of attack like this. And so, poorly drawn, but hope you get the idea. So figs that get shot from the side or from the back, like they can't really fight back against that. They can't like shoot their own missile and have it loop around and kill something in the back. It just doesn't happen. So coming in from a side like this is really, really strong. And just with this setup, Masterbel, let's slow this down so it's easier to see. Now some of these are breaking off to deal with these fighters, but a lot of them are just going forward up here. And so Masterbel is cleaning these guys up pretty quickly, goes straight to the bombers. These figs up here, basically useless. Even if these figs weren't, didn't get taken out by pink here, Masterbel has plenty of fighters left over because of that awkward spread that Blobson had. And yeah, it looks like Blobson and Lovish and some other person already resigning, and Brown basically cleaning up. So one thing I didn't point out, but I should make a note of, is Masterbel basically had a little bit less in terms of fighters. Like he had a little bit less spending in fighters than Blobson. And look how many figs are still alive. Because of the angle of attack. He came in from the side, from the back. Again, those fighters from Blobson, some of them like kind of veered that way. Other ones started engaging with the fighters of Masterbel. And so that split meant all these figs are basically dead. And because of coming in from the side, basically meant some of them weren't attacking right away, and then able to use those to clean up the bombers before the bombers even did damage. So kind of a Hail Mary from Blobson to attempt that. And just like a weird angle, yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Lovish, basically already out. More players are resigning. Got a couple bombers running around still to do some damage. So yeah, I just want to maybe reiterate on just saying, like, so the two main things, was the scouting with the bombers, just having the bombers, having some extra vision, like beforehand and as the bombers are going around, just having one ahead and one with the bombers, I think is really strong, so that you can find better targets with them. And then, the other second part of that is just cloning if you have the APPM for it. You kind of split them up earlier up here, but splitting them up, the more you split them up, the better. The more targets that you can hit the target exactly where you want it, instead of like throwing some bombers into hitting nothing type of thing. Can be really useful. And then the actual like biggest thing is just how late the T2 transition was. Trying to kind of go all in with the bombers. You did a reasonable job. Don't get me wrong. That was great. And you did a lot of good damage with it. But I don't think it was enough to justify the aggression. And don't get me wrong. Something that is something you can try once you like take out the enemy air player. You did significant damage already. It's like your team's already ahead. So even if your aggression kind of fails or falls flat, your team should be in a better position, to eventually end the game anyways. So totally fine, in my opinion, like totally fine in a way. Um, but if you're going to be safe about it, just go for the T2 faster, because you saw Blopson had like plenty of fighters, even had more than Masterbel, had T2 faster, had Mexes upgraded faster, and that's despite basically losing everything. Just the power of rebuilding and all that. But yeah, also just like I want to point out too that um, it once you get bombed and you like lose basically everything, like you can still get back in the game. You just gotta be really knowledgeable about how to do that. This isn't necessarily for Masterbel. This is for other people maybe watching this. Um, so don't quit too early. If the game can still be played, it is sometimes worth playing it out just to get that experience of um, figuring out how to rebuild efficiently. There's like build orders that people apply to the early game, and they adapt it to different maps or whatever. Um, but to me, the real strong thing in bar to learn is just how to watch your resources and how to adapt them to the situation. Some maps there's higher wind, some maps there's more tide, some maps are low wind and low tide, and now you have to do solar. Um, when do you add on build power? Like all that stuff is really good stuff to pay attention to until you like really have it down, because it's such an important thing to learn. And rebuilding's part of it. Like, oh, you start with nothing, or maybe like you lose most of your stuff, but you still have some wind turbines, or maybe you still have your mexes, or something. Like, how do you adapt to that situation specifically? Um, and the answer to that is just watch your resources and add on what you need to add on, and not just like AFK build whatever. Um, and if you master that really well, like Blopson has, then you can straight up just come right back into the game. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys learned something. Masterbel, I hope this helped you a little bit. Kind of an awkward replay for me because honestly, you did a lot of things quite well. But yeah, the cloning thing I think is one of your next steps to like getting that much better in a way. But a lot of other good stuff with the scouting and scaling and stuff early on. Anyways, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully, I'll be doing more of these in the future instead of less like I have been. But yeah, see you guys next time.